Hi, thank you for joining.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So, for those who don't know you, can you just tell a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Are we starting immediately?
Yes.
My name is Neil Cannon. I wrote a book called The Vitality Secret, and for 5 or 6 years now, I've been helping people reverse illness by getting to the underlying cause, really helping people balance their bodies. And I have a big focus on chronic inflammation, which is really your immune system kind of protecting you from all sorts of intruders. And once we get rid of this threat in the body, we can heal lots of things.
Yeah, and what to you is the vitality secret?
The vitality is a good question. What is the vitality secret? Really, ultimately, when I wrote this in 2016 or published it then, I talked about how the vitality secret is really getting to the cause of your illness. So instead of thinking I have a genetic illness or maybe even incurable illness, think of these illnesses as symptoms of an underlying cause. And when you get to the cause, which involves a number of different things, but when you get to the cause, one can free themselves from these illnesses that often they've grown to accept as part of life.
Okay.
So I see that the body can heal just about anything. And once we understand that, it gives us our power back so we can, live a life rich in vitality.
So, do you believe there is a cure to these autoimmune diseases that are supposedly uncurable?
Although I'm very careful not to use the word cure because that suggests it will never come back. And it's a bit of a misunderstanding that, but really, if we, instead of calling illnesses or diseases, think of them as symptoms of an underlying cause. My story very quickly, just to put this into perspective, I had eczema for 30 years. That can be regarded as an illness or a disease. And I think of it now as a symptom of some form of imbalance in my body, some form of toxicity, and that normally starts in the gut, and really a symptom of chronic inflammation. So I reversed my eczema after 30 years of always being given steroid creams, antibiotics, or harmful prescription moisturizers. And I actually stumbled upon its underlying cause by accident. I can come on to that in a second. But once I basically created a harmonious environment in my body, really meaning once I got rid of toxicity from my body, my eczema went away. So I did that with diet, with movement, by managing stress, by managing my emotions, and my eczema went away. I can't say it's cured because that suggests it will never come back. But eczema it's not something you can cure. The eczema is a symptom. So for the most part, I'm completely free from symptoms. And that's the same with just about any other chronic illness.
Yeah, so is your eczema kind of what caused you to be so passionate about chronic illness and pre-existing conditions?
Yeah, very much so. I, like many people in the holistic space, I come with my own story of healing, and that's the main story. And also my father was he had a stroke, and before his stroke, he was, I guess you'd say, diagnosed, or he was told he had this thing called chronic inflammation. I didn't know what that was at the time. I was very new to the health and wellness space. I'd actually written a book already, an ebook, about how to increase testosterone naturally for guys. So I was already in health and fitness, but I wasn't really fully into this kind of healing space I'm in now. But I kept on seeing this word inflammation everywhere. I remember him telling me before his stroke that he had chronic inflammation. And then when he had the stroke, I was thinking, I had this kind of inner knowing in my heart that his stroke was avoidable. And that's what I found out. So I kind of followed my kind of inner guidance, if you like, and went on a bit of a mission, bit of a quest to figure out what this whole chronic inflammation thing was really about. And that's when I realized it's the underlying cause of so many chronic illnesses, and including the high blood pressure he'd had leading up to his stroke, and also the asthma that he'd had since he was 12. So we often think of asthma as this disease or illness, but it's chronic inflammation of the bronchial tubes, which blocks the airways. The standard of care in Western medicine, I do quotation marks when I say medicine because I don't see Western medicine as medicine, I see it as drugs. So the Western medication industry prescribes a drug, or in this case, an inhaler, a localized steroid inhaler. And it's amazing because it opens up the airways and it allows the person to breathe. So amazing, amazing solution. The only thing it doesn't do is get to the cause of why the asthma is there in the first place. So people can reverse asthma by getting to the cause. It's just not known in the mainstream. And, you know, I've also interviewed many, many people who have reversed incurable illnesses, one of those being asthma. And a lot of people can just make very simple shifts, even just dietary, and their asthma goes away, or their allergies go away, or their eczema goes away, or, you know, a lot of things, minor shifts can create big results.
Yeah, when it comes to people who want to get rid of chronic inflammation, is it something that's going to be different for every single person and they kind of just need to experiment?
Yes, really. There are some things that work across the board, dietary wise, and there are some recommendations that I recommend just about to everyone, not every single person, but many, many people can benefit, particularly in America, from taking out the modern hybridized wheat grain, meaning take out gluten. And if you take out dairy, milk, particularly cow's milk, a lot of things can start to clear up and you can start to see a shift in that. And there's just a couple of staple culprits, which we've kind of grown to accept as part of our main food source. And I lived that way for 30 odd years. And I quickly realized that when I took those out of my diet, it was much easier to manage my eczema. And then so many people could also make some shifts as well. That's obviously not the only thing, but some people across the board, I would say a lot of people can benefit from those two changes and reducing sugar.
Yeah, for sure.
The cleaner, and also going super clean, just taking out anything processed and anything that's man-made, chemicals, artificial flavorings, vegetables that aren't grown naturally. If they're covered in pesticides and herbicides, fungicides, insecticides, limit them. It's not always easy to get organic everything. So there's just a few little basic shifts that can work across the board just when it comes to diet, but diet's just one piece of the puzzle.
Yeah. So would you suggest people try elimination diets and kind of eliminate for maybe 2 weeks and see if they feel better?
Great idea. Yeah, some people can benefit from that particularly. It can be quite drastic for some people. It can be quite a big leap to go from, let's say, a standard American diet. Where are you from?
Los Angeles.
Los Angeles. Nice. I spent a lot of my time there in the last 6-7 years. So you're very fortunate to be in that kind of bubble where we're surrounded by really healthy food,
Right.
really good options, gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free. You know, it's there, and people are very much in tune with it. But for the most part of America, for example, and other places around the Western world, many people aren't aware of the toxins that come in food. And so to go from like a standard American diet to elimination can be quite a big jump for some people. So what I recommend is normally starting with a few things, seeing if you get some differences, and then start to add to that. If you do want to do an elimination diet and you want to go straight for something like paleo, which is grain-free living, which is actually one of the main reasons I got results actually, that can work across the board as well for so many people. And those who I have interviewed who have reversed autoimmune conditions like lupus or multiple sclerosis or fibromyalgia, chronic pain, although that's not strictly autoimmune, Crohn's disease, things like ulcerative colitis, and lots of them, endometriosis, they can be helped significantly by going on a grain-free diet. So for some, that might be considered elimination. And for some, elimination might be going like full vegan, for example, although I'm not a vegan. So there's different types of elimination to think about as well.
Yeah. And you see a lot of companies marketing a lot of products as anti-inflammation, such as things like ginger and turmeric. Is that stuff, does that really work and is anti-inflammatory, or is it kind of more of a marketing gimmick?
Great questions. It is definitely the king of spices, I would say. turmeric, or turmeric, as you say, is definitely the king of spices. It's definitely anti-inflammatory. And I think it's really good to include those in the diet. It's just, as well as that, you want to also take the things out that are causing the toxins in the first place. So if we take a supplement which reduces inflammation, the results of that are going to be compounded if you also take the stuff that's causing the inflammation out. And, you know, I often use the analogy, no amount of herbal tea is going to counteract the number of McDonald's you eat every single day. You know, we can't just drink herbal tea or have supplements and just continue eating garbage, because it's not going to work. So if you want to take the supplements, by all, yes, do it. And the results are going to be much more effective if you combine that with an anti-inflammatory diet.
Yeah, and if somebody does this and gets their diet under control and is really eating in a way that they think is anti-inflammatory, and they're still having these symptoms, what could possibly be other pieces of the puzzle?
Great question. So I talk about 4 pillars of vitality after my book: physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual, or energetic. So physical means diet, exercise, elimination of toxins, which is internal and external. So there could be any number of toxins that you're surrounded by. You might be, for sake of argument, you might be living next to a chemical plant. You know, just thinking of an obvious toxin. There might be some toxins in the body. There might be some mercury in the mouth, which is causing an upset to the body electric, which is, I can go into that if you like, but it's ultimately looking at the body as a wiring system with different organs on different circuits. And if we have things like mercury in the mouth, or root canals and cavities, that can actually drop the voltage to different circuits, which means we can create dis-ease, in very simple terms, meaning less power to different organs. So if there's a toxin in the body, other than food, again, food is just one type of potential toxin. There could be other types of toxins in the body. There could be pathogens. There could be, you know, candida, overgrowth. There could be parasites, anything like that, which is causing an inflammatory effect on the body, needs to be kind of eliminated, or at least reduced considerably when it comes to diet. And then, you know, there are other things like electromagnetic fields from phones. My own immune system crashed because of my own phone in 2017. Quick story on that one, and that sent me down the passion and interest in the body electric and really understanding this part of things. I got sick, not badly sick, but I couldn't shake off a cold for about a month. And again, very, very mild. I just want to paint the picture that it's a very mild thing for me, but it's very unusual for me because I never really get sick. And I've lived an anti-inflammatory life for almost 10 years now, I guess, for the most part. And, you know, vegetable juicing every day, working out every day, using my body. And I couldn't work out why I couldn't shake off a cold. It didn't add up to me. So I went to go and see a kinesiologist or chiropractor. There's like, he does a few different things. He is a chiropractor and a kinesiologist. And he told me that my immune system had crashed because of my teeth had been affected by my phone, and they had become what's called depolarized. That made no sense to me whatsoever at the time. But all it meant was the electricity, the charge in my teeth, this side of my mouth where I held my phone, had flipped. And your teeth are like circuit breakers in a house. Now, does this make any sense to you? Don't worry if it doesn't.
A little bit.
A little bit. So in the house, you know, you've got the fuse board with different fuses on different circuits.
Yeah.
You can control a lighting circuit in your living room or your kitchen, or we have a power socket. I used to be an electrician, by the way. So you have different circuits with different fuses. And these fuses are basically our teeth. And he said that the charge on 3 of these teeth had flipped. I'm going to try and keep this simple, but they went from a negative charge to a positive charge. And that's not a good thing in the body, because all of our cells are charged electrically. I'm really trying to simplify this. They all carry a net negative charge and to function optimally. and these 3 teeth had flipped, and these 3 teeth were attached to my immune system. And he said, that's why your immune system is compromised. And he used lasers on my teeth, and then in just a couple of treatments, I was back to normal.
Oh,
So,
really?
and if you can imagine, yeah, this is a big thing to consider,
Yeah.
particularly now, because we've just gone from 4G to 5G, which is one of the biggest leaps in electromagnetic field we've ever experienced in our lifetimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Mm.
and then how big of a role do you think mental health plays into these symptoms?
Oh, huge. Everything. The mind-body connection is one of my passions, and it has been so much in the last couple of years, particularly. So, you know, those 4 pillars are physical, mental, emotional, energetic, or spiritual. The mental and emotional piece is so big. So our thoughts and our beliefs, consider them like the language of the mind or the brain, and our feelings and emotions are the language of the body. If we have a thought, a negative thought, a stressful thought, a thought that triggers stress in the body, a whole cascade of chemicals and hormones happens after that, which effectively weaken the immune system. They weaken the gut. Most of the immune system, 70 to 80% of the immune system, is located in and around the gut. And if we are stressed on a chronic scale, like continuously, and we're in a moderate state of fight or flight, it effectively weakens the gut, and it weakens the immune system, and it makes us more susceptible to food types which we were otherwise fine to eat. And stress, if you think about it this way, the stress response is it's perfect in its own right. It's absolutely divinely created. If we want to escape a saber-toothed tiger, and we want or flee from a lion, we need that fight or flight response. We need the adrenaline to start pumping in, the cortisol to rise, and all of our senses to turn on, and everything happens in a perfect way. The blood drains from the gut into our hands and feet so we can escape. So that's amazing to escape a lion or a saber-toothed tiger, but it's not good for the internal immune system, which is, you know, designed to keep us safe and alive from, and, you know, fend off bugs and viruses, etc. And it gets weaker. So if one is in a state of fear, which is ultimately stress, stress is like a code word for fear, it means that the gut is weakened and the immune system is weakened. So the mental health is really important for this. And if we are in a bit of a negative spiral, maybe we're exposed to too much mainstream media or something like that, and there's too much negativity happening all the time, that can create an imbalance in the body, and it can affect the mind. Well, it does affect the mind-body connection, and it can certainly create illness. I've got a number of clients right now. In fact, I'll give you an example. One of them has Lyme, and he gave me 2 perfect examples to illustrate the theory that I was teaching him. And this is how our thoughts can make us sick, or they can make us vital, and our emotions can make us sick, or they can make us vital. And he said one weekend he got really stressed because of this event that happened to him literally just a few weeks ago. Just some admin in his house. It was just frustrating for him. And he got angry, and he just got very frustrated. And the next day, his whole body was kind of frozen. And then another example was a few months ago, he had an amazing conversation with this woman online, and he was just full of the chemicals of love and appreciation and hope. And the next day, he had no pain. This is indicative of what we can do in the body by altering our emotional state, by changing our emotions, by changing our thoughts. And what most people don't realize is we have the choice of where to direct our thoughts at any point in time. We have the choice to change our perception of our environment, of our lives at any point in time. It's just how we respond to things, which can then affect our biology and also how we create in our lives around us. That's quite in depth, but the mind-body connection is huge. It's one of my passions, and one of the best things I think we can do right now in these really challenging times is do what we can to limit exposure to stuff that creates fear in the body. Surround ourselves with people who are loving, if we can, if we're fortunate, you know, to be surrounded by loving people, friends, family, etc. and just be in that state as much as we can. I love meditation for this reason. I talk about supercharged meditations. I do breath work with my clients and groups as well, which changes your brain state. So that's a long answer to your question about the mind-body connection. It's very important. And there is much more available to us around that area than most people realize.
For sure.
We don't need to just take drugs. There's a lot that we can do without that stuff, and take our power back, as corny as that sounds.
Yeah, can the drugs for mental health kind of impact those symptoms of autoimmune diseases?
It's quite a big question, that, and I want to be careful with what I say. You know, I'm not a medical doctor, so I would never override any medical professional ever. All I'm providing is some holistic thoughts, and all I would say is every drug, bar none, comes with side effects. There's not a single drug on the market that does not come with side effects.
Yeah.
And you just have to, many people don't even do this. It's the first thing I would ever do if I prescribed a drug. I'd look at the content, the leaflet, and look at every single potential side effect, and then make a decision as to whether I want to take that. But most people don't do that. So a lot of drugs mess up your microbiome, which is the engine for the body. This is like the gut is it's the engine. And again, it's 70 to 80% of the immune system. And a healthy microbiome is so important for a healthy body. And if we are taking medications consistently, those drugs can mess with the microbiome. So what often happens is people get a symptom and they might think of it as an illness. They're prescribed a drug, and then they start taking the drug and the symptom goes away. So they think the drug's working because the symptom goes away. But then a few years down the line, there's more symptoms. It's not just because of their genetic makeup. Genes play a tiny, tiny, tiny role in the development of illness. The science of epigenetics tells us this, which basically says it's the environment that we keep in the body that influences our gene expression. It's not the genes themselves that trigger the illness. Anyway, that's a bit too much, maybe for now, but it puts us back into the driving seat. And ultimately, if we're taking anything that messes with the microbiome, which is our gut, which is our immune system, which is the engine for our body, it can create more symptoms down the road.
Okay.
So I'm just mindful, and that's why I'm so passionate about helping people come off medication and not just accepting it. I'll give you another example, actually. Someone recently, a client, she had bipolar, and she told me that after doing all the work, we did a gut microbiome test, by the way, which analyzes your gut microbiome, your bacteria in the gut. And we did a number of different things in terms of diet and mental, emotional. And she told me secretly, she told me that she took herself off the medications. I never said to her, do that. Just want to be clear about that. She told me she had decided to take herself off medications, and then she was amazed that she could actually manage her emotions without any drugs.
Yeah.
And one of the first ever clients of mine back in March, she also had, March 2015, she also had bipolar. And she realized by changing her diet that her doctor was able to reduce her medications, because there is a strong gut-brain link. So our gut microbiome health affects our brain health, and also our brain health affects our gut microbiome health. It goes both ways.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's pretty amazing. So what we eat can literally affect our mood. What we eat and how we move can affect our mood, and our
for sure.
things, what we eat and how we move can affect our mood. But also we are so much more in control of our emotions than most people realize.
Yeah, and then anxiety obviously affects these symptoms, but does depression just as much? Or is it kind of different?
It's an interesting question. So there's kind of two ways of thinking about this. So depression can, if one is in a constant state of depression, it triggers this kind of cascade of chemicals and hormones in the body that isn't really conducive to healing. It's not to be scared, you know, don't be kind of scared about it. It's just kind of what tends to happen. And when we are, and also when we have depression, it's often because there's chronic inflammation in the body. And there's actually a mainstream, I couldn't believe this was the mainstream media, but a few years ago, they linked a third of cases of depression to chronic inflammation of the brain. So if the body is toxic, it can literally lead to depression. So it's like it's a two-way thing. So what we eat can affect our mood, but how we affect our thinking can affect our gut. So can depression affect the gut? Yes, it can, ultimately. And we want to be doing things which remove ourselves from that spiral and become aware of all of the amazing, incredible technologies there are out there. And when I say technology, I mean human technologies, free technologies that we have, like meditation, like breath work. This stuff can literally change your psychology in a minute. And the more that we become aware of these things, the less depression is going to affect the gut, which then affects the symptoms. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So yeah, there's lots of hope. I mean, right now we're living in really challenging times, and my heart goes out to people who are suffering. All I'd say is there's so much availability, so much.
Yeah.
And you know, I've got links on my site to these kinds of things and breath work, and you know, I've been doing Wim Hof breathing ever since the beginning of COVID and before, but pretty consistently since COVID. And about 3 months ago, I started a group, and we've been doing it all together. And there are people saying, wow, my energy's better. I sleep better. I've got a better mood. I'm not stressed. I'm not anxious all the time. And it's purely by getting oxygen into the body. You know, just by oxygenating the body, we can change our mood.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's some very basic and free things that people can do to change our brain state. You know, our physiology, how we move our body, affects our psychology. So just by getting out into nature, that's going to affect our psychology. Bit difficult for some people right now in lockdown, but the more that we can move or just do conscious breath work, sitting down, taking 5 minutes out of the day, just do some breath work, just notice how the brain state changes. So I've done a lot of Tony Robbins training as well, which really helps with this, and other transformational work. But what we can do to change our mental state or emotional state is, you know, what's available to us is incredible.
Yeah, where can people find you and learn more about your work?
My website is vitalitysecret.com. That's singular secret, not plural, vitalitysecret.com. I've got a program called the Resilience Code, which is an online program to help you get to the cause of illness. And I also do online or private coaching over Zoom. That's how I've worked for about 6 years now. And yeah, that's how I help with people. And you can download an e-copy of my book at vitalitysecret.com/book.
Yeah, cool. Thank you so much for joining me.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Caroline.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.